What's up? Shish kebabs are right at the top of the list of dishes that are great in theory, but actually suck in practice. I mean, who wants to eat a bunch of overcooked meat and charred but raw veggies on a stick? Not me. Today, I'm gonna show you how to make some sick tasting shish kebabs at home that have some juicy, well-seasoned meat and tender, flavorful charred veggies. To get started, I'll need some sticks to grill stuff on. I prefer bamboo wood skewers over metal because I find they grip the food a lot better. But if you do have to go with metal skewers, I would say make sure you go with flat ones. Those grip the food not as good as bamboo, but much better than round metal. To get these ready for the grill, I'm gonna set one up on the edge of my cutting board and karate chop it in half. Or you could just snap it in half. Like this. That also works. More on why I use half sticks in just a second. For now, I'll dump 16 to 20 skewers into some water to soak them for at least 30 minutes. Soaking is necessary to keep these from turning into ashes on the grill. I'll set these sticks aside and then I'll grab the first of two meats. That'll be chicken. Specifically, I've got two large breasts here that add up to about 1.5 pounds or 680 grams. To prep it for the grill, I'll cube this chicken by cutting the thinner front end off the breast. Then I'll slice the thicker end in half. From there, I'll take that thick slice and cut it into 3 pieces that are about 1 inch across. For the thin end, I'll cut the whole thing into about 3 pieces. Each breast should yield about 9 to 10 large cubes, making for 20 in total. Next, my chicken goes into a freezer bag. Then I'll top that with 75 grams of olive oil, 10 grams of salt, 4 grams of black pepper, 2 grams of chili flake, 3 grams of dried oregano, 15 grams of minced garlic. Then I'll grab 1 whole lemon and rip off the zest with my microplane. Then I'll cut it in half and juice both sides into the freezer bag. Lastly, I'll grab 15 grams of parsley, stems removed, and 3 grams of picked fresh thyme. I'll just chop those two together until they're pretty well broken down, and then into the pool they go with everything else. Now, I'll just seal this bag and give it a tumble to mix everything together, and once this chicken is slathered up with this herby marinade, I'll scoot it over to the fridge and marinate it for 2 hours. Now, it wouldn't be a shish kebab grill out without multiple meat options. So next, I'll grab some beef. Specifically, I've got 4 6-ounce sirloin steaks here. I personally really like these pre-cut baseball sirloins from the store because they're very predictable in both size and texture, but pretty much any sirloin steak at the meat counter would work fine. Now, sirloins are about a 7 out of 10 tender on a good day when cooked perfectly medium rare, but today we're grilling and nailing a mid-rare on a meat cube on a stick is very hard to do well. So an optional step here to open up the margins is to tenderize the steaks with a jacquarding tool. To do that, I'm just jabbing these steaks 10 to 12 times. No more than that because it'll start to break down the natural texture in the meat, making it feel kind of weird in your mouth. By the way, a jacquarding tool is just a bunch of blades set up on a spring. When you punch it into the meat, it breaks down some of the protein, making it more tender. This will allow us to have a nice tender steak at any temperature, mid-rare or mid-well. It's a super handy tool, and if you're interested, I'll link to this one down in the description. Once this meat has been punched up a little bit, I'll cut it in half, then cut those halves into chunky squares just like I did for the chicken. Ideally, they'll be about the same thickness so that they cook in the same amount of time, and each 6-ounce steak should yield me 5 pieces, giving me 20 in total. Now, to make the marinade for these beefs, I'll combine 75 grams of worch, 40 grams of soy sauce, 40 grams of aged balsamic. If you don't have aged, use regular balsamic, and 15 to 20 grams of extra sweetener. Next, in goes 12 grams of salt, 5 grams of black pepper, 30 grams of Dijon mustard, 65 grams of olive oil, and then 35 grams of agave syrup or honey or brown sugar. In goes my whip, and I'll get all that mixed together. Then my steak goes into a freezer bag, and into that bag goes 2/3 of my marinade. I'll save the rest for something else in just a second. For now, this bag gets sealed, tossed, and then thrown into the refrigerator next to the chicken. I'll give this 2 hours as well. Okay, no shish kebab is complete without veggies. The problem, as we all know though, with veggies and meat on the same stick is that they cook at wildly different times. We get overcooked meat and undercooked veg. So what do? We separate them. This allows me to cook each item properly on its own. Enter the half skewers. Half skewers here allow each guest to sample both meats and get some veggies. In my opinion, a whole skewer of any one thing is too much for one person. So to get started on this veggie kebab, I'll need to marinate some veggies. How about some portobello mushrooms and an eggplant? Those go well together. For the mushroom, I'll quickly clean off any of the super thin cap around the edges. That'll hang off my kebab, making it harder to flip it and grill things evenly. Then I'll slice and dice it into chunky cubes, just like we did for the beef and the chicken. I'm going slightly smaller than those because super big mushroom bites won't cook through before they burn. For the eggplant, same deal. I'll just slice and dice into some large cubes. These will shrink a lot, so you can go quite big, 1 inch or larger. Just as before, I'll scoop these eggplants into a freezer bag, then in goes my mushrooms, and then the rest of that reserved beef marinade. Now I'll move this over to the fridge and soak it with my meats for 2 hours. While those marinate, let's have some lunch with the sponsor of this video, Factor. My fridge is almost always filled with a ton of fresh food. That's because I'm cooking most days for my job, and I almost always cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner for Lauren and I. But on days when I'm working late, like past 8 p.m., if I don't have something easily reheatable in the fridge, odds are I'm gonna get junky takeout and almost instantly regret that decision. That is, unless I've got Factors in the fridge. Factor is a meal delivery service that helps you avoid that junky takeout and other ordering in mistakes with dietitian approved meals that make it easy to eat well. That way you don't have to opt for something that's not so good for you and wonder what you're even doing with your life after you eat it. Factor meals come to you fresh, never frozen, and can be heated up in only 2 minutes. I went for the Calorie Smart meals again this month, but I'm also a big fan of their Protein Plus option. That comes with 30 grams of protein per meal. They also have keto and veggie options if that's what you're into. Head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code Lagerstrom50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. The link is in the description. Thank you, Factor. After 2 hours of marination time, I'll preheat my grill to its highest setting. On this Weber Spirit, that means all 3 burners go to black circle. I'll let that come up to a full rip. In the meantime, I'll slide back in and dump my chicken into a bowl. As you can see, the chicken got a little white around the edges. That's totally fine. The acidity from the lemon partially cooked the outer layer. Chicken ceviche, basically. Now to build these kebabs, I'll take my now 6-inch skewers and slide 5 pieces of chicken onto each. That amounts to roughly 4 to 5 ounces per skewer. I'll do the same for my marinated beef, and in total you should have 8 skewers with 5 chunks each. Now to build some veggie shishies, I'll need to cut and season 2 additional vegetables, zucchini and bell pepper. For the zucchini, I'll just cut it into thick coins that are about 3/4 of an inch each.
Oh no!
Then I'll just cut those in half, keeping them nice and chunky. Next, I'll scoot those into a bowl, then grab my peppers. I'll need 2 to 3 of those of various colors, and to prep them, I'll just zip off the sides as cleanly as I can. I'll also cut out the white, watery rib part. That's bitter and kind of sogs up the kebab. Next, I'll cut these planks of pepper into rectangular cubes and then scoot them into the bowl. Behind that, a good long squiggy of olive oil, a few dozen cranks of black pepper, and a strong pinch of salt. A quick toss to combine, and I'll let these sit for 10 minutes to get well seasoned. Without this, the zucchini and peppers would be pretty bland. Next, let's check on those eggplant and mushrooms. As you can see, they've softened up quite a bit and soaked up a lot of the marinade. These are going to be some of the best bites of this whole experience. Now to build these skewers, I like to poke one of them into a potato for stability, then drop on a zucchini moon, red bell pepper, marinated portobello, then orange bell to keep the colors alternating, of course, then juicy eggplant, red bell pepper, mushroom, orange bell, and finally zucchini moon. I like to put the zooks on the end here because those act as stoppers to keep everything tidy and stuck in place. In total, you should have enough to make 8 of them. Now, onto a very hot and well-oiled grill, I'll drop all 4 of my chickens and all 4 of my steaks. I'm gonna cook the veggies separate, mainly because filming while grilling is really hard and hot, and I didn't want to mess things up. And once I'm all loaded up here, I'll close the lid and let those rip for 4 to 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, I'll come back to check and see how we're looking. Oh, we've got some really nice grillage going on here. So I'll rotate these kebabs and cook them on the other side for 4 to 5 minutes. After about 2 more minutes, I like to check back and see how things are looking. And at this point, the steaks aren't getting as much heat as I would like. So I'm gonna move them over to the far side of the grill where the heat is a little bit more intense. I'll give those another 2 minutes to catch some char on the outside. And then I'll come back with an instant read thermometer to check the temp. As you can see, I'm sitting right around 130F. That's going to come up to medium once it rests. Some pieces will be more medium rare and some will be slightly more medium well. That's totally okay. Thanks to the jacquard, that variance isn't going to impact tenderness at all. The chicken needed another 2 to 3 more minutes to come up to temperature because we don't want it medium rare. And at this point, it's at 150F. That's my ideal. Any more and the chicken would start to dry out, and any less, it's not safe to eat. Next, I'm gonna drop down my veggie skewers real quick and then cook those for 10 to 12 minutes while my meat rests inside. Halfway through, I'll come back and flip the veggie sticks over and then continue to cook until they're well browned and tender throughout. That'll take about 10 to 12 minutes. And at that point, things are looking pretty good. So I'll pull them off. Wow, those are some really beautiful vegetables. Too often, veggies are just an afterthought at a barbecue. No more! These are the main event. When I get back inside, you can see we've got something really special here, you guys. Properly cooked meat and veggies in the same place at the same time. Now, my favorite way to serve grilled meat and vegetables is actually with some saffroni rice. Recipe for this rice and all of the other stuff in this video will be on my website, by the way, so check that out. Now to serve, I'll slip some beef off a stick. I'll throw on a stick of chicken and then a couple of veggies. You guys, grilled meat and veggies is a fundamental summertime food that too often falls short of greatness. In fact, it's usually not even good or fine. These kebabs, on the other hand, are full of super flavorful, juicy meat and tender, charred veggies. Please, please try this for yourself sometime soon. And don't sleep on the marinated mushrooms. Those might be the best part. Let's eat this thing!